Namaskar and good morning to all of you. After that very academic and philosophical lecture from Dr. Kumar, which was very intriguing, I thought I'll talk to you about one of the policy that Government of India just announced. And, with this wonderful gathering and set of people who are here actually who are practicing healthcare, it's very important to understand the holistic component of healthcare as Dr. Kumar very nicely put together actually. I think the whole purpose of human health is not just about looking into very narrow zone of clinical care or practice, but it is about looking at holistic health of how well you will live your life as and when you move around with yourself in the ecosystem that we look at. So this Bio-E3 policy, which is actually many E's, almost sounds like a trilogy of a Bollywood story, but it's interesting enough because it talks about really how you can take care of your economy while taking care of environment and also creating more and more jobs for yourself actually. So it's a tremendous opportunity for our country to really drive what we call bio-innovations in Bharat. So as I said, the key to this is, as I already alluded in the first keynote address, actually the planetary health is what is of utmost critical importance right now. The deterioration of global commons as air, water, weather, every aspect of life is the natural system that supports life on Earth. And everything of that amplifies all the health conditions actually. So it's very important that we look at the holistic perspective from the point of view of how we can govern this perspective. The second other important point that from a healthcare perspective is very important and very critical to understand and remember, every new innovation that is happening in the present world is more expensive than it was previously before actually. And I think that's becoming a paradigm and it's expected paradigm and it's taken for granted that this is what's going to happen actually. To be very frank, we need to really start thinking from that point of view as well. Who will bear the burden of diseases and how long will you like to bear the burden? One needs to gain a better understanding of core economic principles to create more accessible and affordable health innovation. Why is it so expensive? How can we really treatment become cheaper? What are the primary drivers of rising health cost? And is sustainable healthcare and architecture possible at all? Given several countries that are struggling with almost all around the world with the perspective of how to really take care of healthcare, I think Indian innovation model is rather unique. If you really look at the Indian pharma, you can I can tell you almost any part of the world, you will never get a cost of the medicines at the cost what we supply to our entire country. And the generic pharma industry really has to be given credit for doing these kind of activities. So can we convert this to the technological perspective such that we, take care of equity, social responsibility, inclusive health, and inclusivity that brings good health for everybody. So to look at this problem, I thought I'll put forward what all the countries and several countries all around the world are facing around is what India talks about Viksit Bharat, which I call conundrum. Because the challenge really is next 25 years, can we really climb this mountain and really reach there? And the challenge is why a developing country with a fast-growing economy like India finds difficult to break into the rich nations. And you can see there is a middle circle or middle square, actually a rectangle. It's got several countries that are trying to escape out of this trigger of middle income trap actually. There are, for example, Brazil, Mexico, China, Russia, all of these countries, in fact, have a very good economy growing. Despite that, they are still kind of not being able to become rich like some of the European countries or America as well, actually. Now, why is it that happening? The challenges are very many, and I think one of the key aspects to look at it, it's been really hard. World Bank study, in fact, says that out of 101 countries since 1960s, only 13 have been able to cross this barrier. So it's a non-trivial problem, actually. First, we should all understand this. And I think it's very important as we embark upon the Viksit Bharat clarion call given by Honorable Prime Minister, We make sure that we understand that this is not easy, this is non-trivial problem. How do we really solve the problem? And obviously, one of the key aspects is what I call two technologies that are together, the digital health, the digital part of the world and the green part of the world, the green tech and digitech can together really make India escape out of this trap. However, the most critical and important aspect to understand is that what it took for us to come from an LMIC to middle-income country is not the same trajectory that is going to take out from one box to the next box, actually. The middle box is quite crowded, and it's quite crowded because it's very hard to escape that kind of a trap, actually. And I think that's where you need to leapfrog into each quadrant. You really need to change the ways of how different things happen. And therefore, this is not only the technology, but the social sector. Every sector part of activities has to be embedded and coming out of it to be able to work together. And I'll show you some of the examples in my later part of my talk to really give you a little bit better detail of this. But really, the world is about what I show you in this slide. It captures about 3 centuries of what has happened in this world, actually. It looks at every single industrial revolution trigger, and it says, as and when they come, they really change everything. If you really look at for the first industrial revolution that happened, for example, in about 1750s in UK, when it started with really coal and other aspect of things which got merged into the steam and railway engine. Then there came the age of steel, electricity, and heavy engineering, followed by the mobile industry, followed by the revolution that all of us saw, which is the ICT industry, actually. And I think what I firmly can guarantee you is the next 25 years is going to be the industrialization of biology, actually. And all the countries that are going to embark upon this and can carry on this trajectory path will be able to reach the target of what high GDP, high healthcare, and high amount of lives, beautiful life, actually. And that's why what I'm talking about here is the bio-revolution is coming. These revolutions are rare, but when they come, they change everything of what you are associated with in life, actually. And again, I will show you that's the reason why for a country like India, we need to have our own growth model, actually. Because if you really understand, instead of cutting, pasting models of where a US model exists, where you say you put in a lot of investment, you fail big, but you fail quickly. But then this gets added to the social part of the human life and endeavors because all the costs of the product gets added into every innovation that you build in, actually. There's another is a European model. There is a Japanese model where different countries have adopted. I think in India can't cut, paste, and put together its own. We will have to come up with our own model, looking into our demography, our economy, and our geographical realities, actually. And all of these need to be put together so that a thought process can be created. Towards this, one of the key components of an India innovation ecosystem that has really dramatically changed in the last 10 years is the startup innovation ecosystem, actually. If you really look at, we've got about 144 crore people. There are fantastic ideas, lots of vibrant people sitting over here, wonderful leaders, all of you there. They're great ideas. There are great solutions. Now, how do we really convert these very rapidly such that it can actually enhance the quality of people and bring ideas to it? And that's where the startups become very important. And the key to the startups is that they provide jobs, they provide products, and they provide services. And they all together, in fact, create this enormous amount of adventurous expertise that is very critical to look at. But if you really look at Indian point of view, we are about 1 in 10,000 citizens in startups right now. In US, it is about 1 in 2,000, 1 in 4,000, and in Israel is 1 in 2,000. So we can, in fact, create about 1 million new startups if we need to catch up with the world, actually. And I think the amount of innovation that will happen through this, the amount of capital that is required is obviously immense. But obviously, what that tells you is tremendous, tremendous opportunity to look at it. The second point, if you want to look at what happens in nations that are actually already developed nations. In India right now, the agriculture sector employs a very, very large number of people, actually, and it's the largest employer of it. But you look at the countries that are actually employing people who are the developed countries, for example, Brazil, South Africa, United States, the numbers are in the single digit. So we need to start thinking about what will happen to the jobs if the agriculture sector has to transform itself from the growth model, what we discuss here, to the one that's seen here. And that is bound to happen because the food security obviously becomes the paramount of importance to be able to do this. And so therefore, one needs to start thinking about all these challenges and problems, actually. And similarly, you can look at the service sector and the industry sector, which altogether kind of imbibes what the developed countries talk about. One of the areas that I've been saying this that is going to change very, very dramatically is the bioeconomy point of view, actually. You can see bioeconomy is growing and growing at a very rapid pace, actually. Since 2020, which was about $85 billion industry, now it's about $150 billion industry. Encompasses a lot of things. And last year, we grew about from 137 to 150. And you can see there are big players, actually. For example, bio-industrial segment is a very, very big sector, which is growing at a faster pace than biopharma. Often, biopharma is a much larger talked about. But it's really the bio-industry that is actually growing fast because it's all about the material world and the human direct intervention strategies. You look at the vaccine capacity in India actually right now, it's actually can produce about 3 billion dosage for the entire world, actually, what it wants. The diagnostic tests are about, 1 billion, 5 billion tests can be done now, and we can change it to even 5 times even further if we really work well. So there's an enormous capacity in the healthcare industry to really make changes and differences. And the bio-IT is the next sector that will grow, actually. In fact, bioagri, which is unfortunately the smallest of all sector, is likely to have enormous, enormous growth seen in next 10 years to come, which is actually going to transformative, as shown in terms of agriculture products. Of course, DBT and BioRack has done several activities, expanded biotech ecosystem. We've got about 100 bio-incubators in the country, and have about 8,500 biotech startups working in various spaces, actually. Again, we want to grow it. As I said, 1 lakh new startups can come. If one needs to create, you need to create many more of these incubators in the country, and many more innovations has to grow. If you really look at how does the bioeconomy compares all across the countries in the world, you can see much smaller countries has a much larger bioeconomic potential, actually. The US and China, it's still only 4% and 5% of its GDP. And obviously, every country now is focusing on bioeconomy potential and to see how one can really bring in value into these kind of aspects. And I think India, which is about 4%, is likely to be about 10%, about 12 in next decade to come, which is an exciting opportunity for all of us to look at. And that's where government, as I said, chaired by Honorable Prime Minister, approved this BioE3 policy, which provides a framework for future scientific, industrial, and societal advancement, a commitment for a more sustainable, innovative, and responsive global challenges. And of course, can India be the leading players in the industrial revolution such that we can intensify the entrepreneurial momentum? What do we really need to do if we need to look at that? And I'll give you 3 examples. I can see my clock turning down, but I'll just give you 3 examples and then stop here, actually. This is what one needs to plot. And the plot means, can we design this kind of refinery in future to come? Now, you can see this is a classical oil refinery for India, where we import about 86% of the crude oil. And the crude oil is nothing as a carbon industry, and it converts into petrol, diesel, jet fuel, and other materials that are required for chemical and polymer industry. Can we convert this into an industry where it uses plastic waste, biomass, and carbon dioxide capture in the next 25 years, and we produce diesel, jet fuel, polymers, and chemicals that will actually feed back into the systems? And you can see I've almost removed petrol because the EV and green hydrogen and other industry will take over, actually, the vehicular movement, which is for small automobile sector. So can we make this happen? And this is easily possible because 450 million tons of carbonaceous resource, which is agri waste and MSW waste, is in fact thrown down and not really make use of. So one needs to develop technologies in the next 2 decades to be able to convert this into an economically viable program. The second one is the chemical world, actually. Now, this is about 60,000 to 70,000 molecules are produced in various other chemical industry, and this is produced by materials, intermediates that come from alcohols, diols, organic acid, propylene, diones, aromatics, and chemicals, which are all from the petrochemical industry. Can we bring them from this bio-waste or landfills and industrial pollutants through the microbial route such that the biomass-derived feedstock becomes a circular bioeconomy. And that's really the challenges that we have put forward. This is a rather interesting agriculture example that, again, I always like to talk about why I called middle income trap. The castor oil, India is 85% producer of the world's castor oil in the country today. It's produced in Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Haryana. 65% of it is imported actually to China, France, USA. Now the castor oil is in fact now one can start producing it in the biomanufacturing route through a microbial system, such that in the next 5 years, China has already started doing this, and such that the microbes will start to produce the castor oil for them without producing the crop. And what that will do is actually that will completely change the ecosystem, and the farmers are not going to get the price value for what it's getting today. And because of this, you're likely to have MSPs coming in, you're likely to have subsidies coming in, and you keep going back to the same old world if you don't grab technologies by its horns. And that's where the whole bioeconomy policy, BioE3 is all about, is create this before you do that actually. And I'll end with this, which is very, very close to all of you actually, which is the reimagining milk, dairy, and meats and egg. If you look at the milk data, the milk, we produce 25% of the world's milk today. Very, very large producer. You look at milk, we have about 140 million people. The per capita availability is about 459 grams per day, even with this today, actually. To produce this, if you look at our livestock count, we have about 300 millions of bovines, and about 75 millions of sheep, 145 millions of goats, and pigs and poultry. Now, how can you enhance milk without enhancing animal numbers, actually? You will not be able to do it. And if you do that, you need more land, more water, more antibiotic resistance, more cost of feed, more greenhouse gas impact. So obviously, you have to migrate to a biomanufacturing source of producing milk, meat, all these products, actually. And so therefore, you will see that there's enormous kind of changes that will happen in the world that will create a completely new ecosystem in the next 25 years to come. And I think I'll skip, but just to say that precision fermentation of this is a new, exciting, critical solution. So everything will be impacted by new biology, whether it's food, water, energy, environment, plants, animals, humans. The next 25 years is going to be quite astonishing. And I would like all of you to join this bio-revolution for the Viksit Bharat and for the best of the world and for the future of our world, which is much healthier planet and much healthier life to live. Thank you very much for your time.